And one of the things I've always liked about working with the United Way, when I served on the board of the United Way of the Midlands, we one time got a grant, I believe it was from the Kellogg Foundation, to try to diversify our efforts. And I think I saw Jesse Washington coming in the room. And I think when I left there, I think Jesse took over as chair of that group to really develop a culture of giving and a culture of sharing and just a culture of setting aside personal agendas. And I think that we are reaching a point in our overall development as a country and as a state, as a community, when that is going to be more important than it's ever been before. I don't have to tell you who you read the newspapers, you watch television, you listen to the radio, and you know that our country is being challenged in ways that none of us ever felt it would ever be challenged again. In fact, if you study the background to what we think is happening to us, you will see that even the crash of 1929 was nothing like we're experiencing today, simply because we, in our thrust for a global community, to create a global community, which we've done, it means that in almost any one of these, that's why we go to bed every night wondering what's happening with the markets in Asia, wondering what's happening in Europe, because we are so intertwined as nations until if we fail here in this country, it will have global applications that no one can really put a value on. And that, to me, means that more than any time in my lifetime, we are going to have to set aside personal agendas in more ways than we realize. And I think all of this will help frame philanthropic activities. If we really get a grip on what is happening to us and our relationships around the world. Back in January, I was traveling outside the country. I went to China, went to Shanghai, over to Singapore, down to Sydney, Australia, over Auckland, New Zealand. And everywhere I went, we were studying port security. People wanted to talk about port security about 10 minutes. And after that, they wanted to talk about what this election this year will yield. Because they are very, very nervous about the future without a connection with the United States of America. They want to be connected to this country. They want to feel this connection. And they believe that it's very important that this country stay stable, that this country stay committed, because if we don't, they feel that they will have impacts that none of us can measure. And I always believe that you can tell most about a country by how people treat the less fortunate. I mean, it's easy to be a friend to somebody who doesn't need anything. We always go around and we tend to, and that's one of the problems we have with philanthropy. People say all the time, money. With philanthropy, people say all the time, money gives to money. That's something, and it's too often true. Usually people who are down on their luck, people who are in fact hungry, people who may be naked, people who are powerless, they don't have anything they can give you back. So you can't do it expecting something in return. What you got to do it for is because there's something in you that says, what I get out of this, I really can't share with anybody else. It's what it does for you. And I think that we as a country, we as a community, are going to have to work hard in the years immediately ahead to regain or some way rekindle that has been so much a part of this country, and that is to share with others. We are going to have communities in the near future that are going to need this more than ever. We are moving into a period of time when our country will experience some very lean years. At the federal level, state and local levels. And it means that people like yourselves who are committed to benevolence are going to be looked upon to save us, to, in fact, make our goodness what really defines us, rather than how much we may have, rather than our boundaries. Our boundaries are not going to be able to do it because it's going to be scarce. So I come today to thank you for that what you do, to ask you to be a bit selfless as we go forward, to ask you to recommit yourselves to the aims and objectives of the United Way, and recommit yourself to the goodness that Americans have come to be known for. The goodness that has been threatened in recent years, the goodness that we seem to have got a little decadent and have lost, the goodness that ought to once again be the mantra by which we all live. When I left home to go to school back in 1957, I thought I was headed for the seminary. In fact, it was not until my third year at South Carolina State that I decided that was not the way for me to go. And so on the day that I decided that I would not go to the seminary, I went home to tell my dad. Orangeburg is about an hour from Sumter. It took me about 3 hours that day. I kept circling the block, trying to build up enough nerve to go in and tell my dad. I finally went in to talk to him, and he was out back in a garden. And I went out to him, and he was standing there. And when I told him my decision, that I was not going to go to the seminary, I figured he would be very disappointed. He paused for what seemed like eternity, but I'm sure just a few seconds. And then he said to me, "Well, son," he said, "I suspect the world would much rather see a sermon than to hear one." And with that, we never discussed religion again, all the way up to the time he died. But I worked every day to try to make sure that everything that I do, that people will see a sermon and not have to worry about what they hear. I think he was saying to me what James was writing in his epistle, that the world would much rather see a sermon in our lives than to hear one from our lips. So I come today to ask you to commit yourselves to making sure that as we work together, that the world, especially our clients, will see a sermon in us. Thank you, Godspeed.